Hi, I'm Susie White. I have a story to tell you about how I talked myself into a problem and how I solved it. This is a picture of me, and this is my boyfriend, Hank Wilson. Well, the whole thing started one afternoon after school. We were having soda when Hank started to tease me. It wasn't so bad at first, but when he said I couldn't boil water without burning it, well, I guess I blew my top. I told him to come over to dinner on Saturday night, and I'd show him whether I could cook or not. Later on, walking home, I began to wonder if I hadn't talked too much too fast. Because when it came to the question of whether I could cook or not, the answer was mostly not. At least then, anyway. By the time I got home, I was really low. I realized what a mess I was in. I didn't even hear what Mom said to me. I just dragged on into the kitchen to get a glass of milk, when I suddenly realized Mom had said Aunt Harriet was coming for a visit. Well, that got me all excited because I thought maybe Aunt Harriet could help me. You see, she's a home economics teacher, and does she know her stuff in the kitchen?
Let me tell it, Susie. You were down in the dumps all right. I'm Susie's Aunt Harriet. There I am, standing at the left of the picture. Well, Susie was just frantic to make her dinner date with Hank a success. I told her I didn't believe it would be fair for me to prepare the dinner for her, but that I'd be glad to give her some advice.
And what advice? It certainly helped me out.
Actually, it was real, down-to-earth fundamentals. I think I can remember exactly what I said. There's one thing that really works magic with meals, and that's imagination. You don't need the latest mixer and electric thingamajig. Oh, they're nice, and they save a lot of time and trouble. But the thing that really makes you mistress of the kitchen is imagination.
That's right. And it taught me something else. With imagination, cooking is fun.
That's right, Susie. And then, as I remember it, your mother and I left you in the kitchen because I had to get dressed for the banquet that night.
Uh-huh. And you know, I must have gone to sleep or something.
Indeed, yes. And that's where I came in.
Yes. I wasn't dreaming, was I?
I told Susie I'd heard her Aunt Harriet explaining about the importance of imagination in cooking and how I considered that to be oh so right. You see, I explained to Susie that I called myself the spark of imagination that exists in us all, but that I'm interested mainly in the kitchen. Then I pointed out to Susie that ever since man has become civilized, his interest in food has gone far beyond eating merely to keep alive. We chatted for a while, then I said, right here in your own America, the invention of apple pie took imagination. Imagine yourself with General Washington at Valley Forge. He was immensely fond of meat pie. There is no meat on this occasion, so the cook put his imagination to work. He has apples. He peels and slices them. He puts them into one pastry crust. He adds sugar, a touch of cinnamon, covers them with another pastry crust, into the oven they go, and out comes the first example of that great American dish, apple pie.
Sure looks good. Oh, what was that you told me about the cheese?
Oh, yes. You see, the cook served cheese with the pie as a protein substitute for meat. It became so popular that way that the old saying goes, apple pie without cheese is like a kiss without a squeeze.
So, there I was, dreaming away. I might have been there yet if Mom hadn't wakened me. Well, anyway, the next day Aunt Harriet and I got together and really got down to business. Golly, we must have gone through 100 recipes, and all the time Aunt Harriet kept pointing out how imagination adds little touches and makes even commonplace dishes better. And believe me, I knew what she meant.
Well, actually, I don't think we went through 100, but we did cover a lot of ground. One of the things that we talked about was Welsh rabbit. I explained to Susie that the proper name really is Welsh rabbit and not rarebit.
Oh, yes, I remember the story. You told me that many years ago a Welsh clan were besieged in their castle. The Baron told the cook to serve rabbit for dinner, but the cook didn't have any rabbit, and because of the siege couldn't get any. So he put his imagination to work and dreamed up this dish with a cheese base as a protein substitute for meat.
That's right, Susie, and here's the recipe right out of my files. You just melt the cheese in a skillet over a very, very low heat, or you can use a chafing dish. You must stir it constantly. Gradually add the milk, stirring until the rabbit is smooth. Add the seasonings and blend well. Serve over toast triangles and sprinkle with paprika. And there you have it. It's a delightfully imaginative way to serve a group snack. You can add other ingredients too and use your imagination to improve on the basic recipe to make your very own rabbit.
I'm going to try that real soon. And oh, Aunt Harriet, what was that wonderfully easy salad you told me about?
That was Ladies' Day fruit salad. And you're right, Susie. It's quite easy to prepare and turns out just right every time. It's a beautiful dish to serve and a delightful one to eat. Here's the recipe. First, you combine the mayonnaise and the cranberry juice. Mix them well until blended. Then arrange the pineapple on lettuce on a serving dish. Place a pear half cut side up on each slice. Garnish the pineapple with rosettes of the cream cheese whipped with a little milk and forced through a pastry tube. Fill the center of the plate with watercress and pour the cranberry dressing over each pear half. And mayonnaise blended with cranberry juice is just as delicious to taste as it is delightful to see. And by using your imagination, you can make many exciting dressings through blending mayonnaise with other ingredients, such as orange juice, tomato juice, and others. The number and variety of new salad dressings you can have are limited only by your imagination. Then we began to talk about parties and wandered off the subject a bit.
I remember we talked about a different kind of tuna sandwich.
That's right. Cheese-topped tuna sandwiches. And here's the recipe. It serves 4. After you have your ingredients ready, you combine the canned tuna, pickle relish, celery, mayonnaise, lemon juice, and the seasonings to taste. For each sandwich, spread the tuna salad between 2 slices of toast. Then top each sandwich with a slice of cheese. Put it under a broiler or into a moderate oven about 350 degrees until the cheese melts. Garnish with lemon wedges and olives, and you'll serve an unusual and tasty party snack. Incidentally, pasteurized processed cheese slices are an excellent example of modern convenience foods, which permit the cook to add imaginative touches to her recipe with a minimum of effort. In addition to topping sandwiches, they can be used on casserole dishes, or a meatloaf, for instance, to add flavor and interest with the greatest of ease. And of course, parties mean candy, so we discussed that for a while.
Oh, yes. I remember chocolate Philly fudge. You know, I never imagined you could make fudge with cream cheese, but it really works.
Oh, indeed it does. And fudge made with cream cheese is especially creamy. It requires no beating or cooking. Only the chocolate needs to be melted. It never fails and is ready to serve in much less time than old-fashioned fudge. The recipe shows you how quick and easy it is. You just place the cheese in a bowl and cream it until it's soft and smooth. Then slowly blend the sugar into it. After that, add the melted chocolate and blend well. Next comes vanilla, salt, and chopped pecans. Mix them in thoroughly until well blended. Press into a well-greased shallow pan and place in refrigerator until firm. It only takes about 15 minutes to chill the fudge. Then just cut into squares and serve. Incidentally, for slightly softer fudge, blend in 1 teaspoon of cream.
That's for me, sometime soon. And I'm also going to make those wonderful toffee squares you told me about, Aunt Harriet.
Oh, yes. This recipe for toffee squares is another party favorite. After you have your ingredients together, all you need is margarine, brown sugar, egg yolk, vanilla, flour, and semi-sweet chocolate. You cream the margarine and sugar, mix in the egg yolk and vanilla, and then add the flour. Spread them in a greased pan about 9 by 13 inches and bake for 15 minutes at 350 degrees. When you remove them from the oven, spread immediately with the melted chocolate and sprinkle with nuts. Let it cool and cut into squares. That's all there is to it. And another good trick for parties or holidays is caramel apples. This new way with regular caramels, it's simple enough for anyone to do, and the sauce is just the right consistency.
But I reminded Aunt Harriet that we had to plan my Saturday night dinner. Since we were on candies, we naturally started talking first about desserts.
That's right, Susie. And I remember that I suggested marshmallow banana pie.
Uh-huh. And I told you that Hank didn't eat much pie, but it was a wonderful recipe. Let me tell about it. I remember the main thing is that when you make your meringue with marshmallows, it not only tastes better, it never gets watery. And it's easy, too. Just slice bananas into a pastry shell. Prepare the pie filling according to the package directions and pour it over the bananas. Let that stand for about 5 minutes. Then sprinkle the marshmallows over the top and place the pie under the broiler for a few minutes until the marshmallows are lightly brown. Put in the refrigerator to chill for at least 30 minutes.
That's exactly right, Susie. In the past, this delicacy was often ignored because it's so difficult to make. But thanks to miniature marshmallows, meringue has come into its own again. They provide a perfect, never-fail meringue for cream pies of all varieties. Another example of how imagination brings magic to meals and ease into the kitchen. But let's get on to the dinner we finally decided upon for your date with Hank. We settled on this menu: celery stuffed with cream cheese, tomato soup, chicken Neapolitan, string beans au gratin, tossed salad with a special dressing of mayonnaise mixed with tomato juice, and for dessert, peach melba.
Oh, let me talk about that. That chicken Neapolitan is really wonderful. What it really is chicken marinated in Italian dressing. And it's so easy to do. All you need is a cut-up frying chicken and Italian dressing. You just put the chicken skin side up in a baking dish and pour the dressing over it. Let it marinate for 1 hour. This tenderizes and adds flavor. Then bake it in the dressing in a moderate oven, about 350 degrees, for about an hour or until tender. And don't forget to baste it frequently with the dressing.
And that was when I returned. Don't be puzzled, folks. I didn't give away any secrets. Only Susie and you can see and hear me, not Hank. Susie was so busy talking that she forgot about marinating when Hank asked her what it meant. And she stumbled over the name of the string beans au gratin.
Yes, that was when you reminded me. But I just mentioned that marinating tenderizes and adds flavor. And as for the string beans au gratin, I've got that recipe down pat. Here's all you do. Make a cream sauce with the margarine, flour, milk, and seasonings. Add the cheese and stir until it is melted. Place the green beans in a serving dish and pour the cheese sauce over them.
Magnifique, Susie. And now I must say au revoir.
Well, my dinner was a big success, thanks to the wonderful advice Aunt Harriet gave me. Believe me, she taught me one thing I'll never forget. The important thing in cooking is imagination.
Wait a minute, Susie. Imagination is important, but don't ever forget that you have to follow recipes and directions very carefully. A knowledge of what goes well together and what seasonings are best with different foods will allow you to combine and even invent dishes. But when you're preparing any foods, remember this: the person who devised that recipe had imagination and knowledge too. Take his advice on measurements, time specified, and the sequence in which you put the dish together, and you'll be right 9 times out of 10.
Oh, sure, Aunt Harriet. I did just that when I fixed my dinner Saturday night. And boy, Hank thinks I'm a real wizard at the chafing dish now. And then you remember you had to leave. We were all sorry to see you go, but I was as grateful as I was sorry. You sure helped me out of an awful hole. You had already called a cab, and we were saying goodbye in the hall. When the bell rang, you asked me to show the driver where the luggage was. When I opened the door, I surely was puzzled. You know, that cab driver looked awfully familiar.